Davide Fonagia assisting us as well, and Charlotte Poussin, Richard here. So that have been creating this event today. So let's see a bit what we hear, because in many countries it's well regulated, you have law, it's well enforced, you have environmental impact assessment. So you might say, well, what's the issue? But in many other countries that's not the case. So let me just to set the scene, a quick presentation here. So sand is produced on a very slow, at the geological scale. It's produced by glaciers, rivers, or waves. And those glaciers and rivers, they're moving 24 billion tons per year. That used to be the main force that was shaping planet Earth. The landscape we know are, valleys are created by glaciers and rivers. But then, now, the biggest force transforming, the biggest agent that transforms planet Earth is human, because we're extracting between 47 and 59 billion tons per year of material, and that was back in 2009. I didn't find more early figures for the general, all what we're extracting. So we're mining, extraction, moving, shifting, and so on. So we became the first force that is shaping planet Earth. And to understand what is the sand, there's no global sand statistics. So what we do, we just try to find a proxy. Now, if you look at those two curves, they relate to two different scales. So on the right-hand side, you have the scale of, for cement, and we see that it's in million metric tons. So we got nearly 100 million metric tons of cement. And then if you look at the sand, it's really extremely correlated, but it's 10 times more. This is in the United States. So basically, once you're using 1 ton of cement in the United States, you're using about 10 tons of cement. It's not the recipe for concrete, so concrete requires less, but you use sand for more than just concrete. It's also to put underneath the roads, it's to make things flat, it's also for land reclamation. So worldwide, we see that there's a very sharp increase in the use of sand and of cement. And if you multiply by this number of sand, you will come to a very large number. And 58% of that is being used in China. China is using, in 4 years, they're using as much sand as the United States in 100 of this current year. So we see it's 25 times more. China has built 140,000 kilometers of road in one year. So there's a very booming industry in Asia that makes a lot of needs for sand. So if we add all together, the approximation is about 50 billion tons, not only for construction, that's also for land reclamation. And that is a wall that is increasing in size, actually. In my report, those figures were smaller, but it's increasing. So it's 50 billion tons. It's hard to imagine how much it is. So it's actually enough material to build a wall of 35 meters high by 35 meters wide all around the equator every year. That's the amount of sand we're using. In other day, we can also say something else. We can say the amount of sand that we're using every day. When I say sand, it's sand and gravel, so it's aggregates. It's 18 kilo per day for every single human being on this planet. So 18 kilo per day. This is the impact that we have. And you cannot use that much material without having a very significant impact on the environment. So what do we do with sand? This, but that's not the issue. So we're doing roads, we're doing buildings, we're doing dams, for instance. This is in Switzerland, but there are bigger ones, of course. Skyscrapers needs glass, and glass for bottles as well. We also use that in electronics and in many other things, even in agriculture, you have sand, in cosmetic, in absolutely everywhere. It's absolutely fascinating. Basically, our society is based on sand. Now we also use sand for land reclamation. You see those shapes of artificial islands in Dubai. If we see Dubai coastline in 2001 and Dubai coastline in 2011, one of these shaped artificial islands is 1.2 billion tons of sand. And the world map is probably even more than that. In Singapore, they extended their territory by 20% using sand from Indonesia, Malaysia, Thailand, and as far as Cambodia. So the territory has been expanded, and this is a tremendous amount of sand that you see on this map, how things are expanded. And despite recent ban from those countries to export sand to Singapore, we still find increase in 2018. So the business continues, that Singapore is still expanding. So this is the kind of thing when you create artificial islands where people are pumping sand and just reinjecting it. We see that as well in this pristine coral reef in the South China Sea, where this pristine environment has been transformed. This is 2014, and this is 2016, where this has been transformed into military bases with an airport and harbor facilities and so on. So and it's done in many of those atolls. Sand can be extracted right on the beach. So this is in Sierra Leone, and now we understand why we're talking about large environmental impact. Imagine Sierra Leone has to rebuild itself after a war, so they need sand for infrastructures. Now, you can imagine these people have no other livelihood than digging sand for finding some money. So what they're doing, though, is you can imagine how quick it goes when they're extracting that, they go to the next beach and so on. I was actually able to witness that in the archipelago of Kirkena in Tunisia. If you look at, this is me, and the root system is at my shoulder height. So illegal sand mining has been operating here, and this is providing them, it's actually making them more vulnerable to climate change because they get less protection against storm surge and you get salty water infiltration in the ground. This is sand extracted in quarries, so creating a big hole. And then, okay, first you remove the coverage and then you create this big hole, and then what do we do with this landscape after that? So sometimes you can refill by water, but sand is very, sand doesn't hold water, so that's not necessarily the best issue. It could be done on a river. This is a very artisanal way, but there are more industrial ways of extracting things on river, very large amount, and when you extract that in rivers, it changes the currents, the river flows. It actually creates erosions on the river banks, and it also changes the turbidity. Now that we have a huge impact on land, but we also use that in marine environments. So now we are pumping sand at 30, 40 meters depth using those large boats. And what it does when you're doing that, you see the track, behind the track of the boat, we are actually pumping sand so that all the microorganisms get crunched in that operation. And then the fine particles were rejected, which change the turbidity of the water. Now the impact you have on the biodiversity is because this ground of the ocean, this is where you get all the small organisms that are feeding the fishes, the small fishes, and then the fishes are feeding the bigger fish, and so you're affecting not only the biodiversity but also the fishery. Now when you pump sand, you are creating a gap, and sand is a solid but also behave like a liquid. So if you're creating a gap somewhere, the sand can flow to resolve this gap. So slowly you get a beach erosion, yet can occur, you have coastal erosion occurring. So, is it time for panic? Well, we can have a panic because it's not only about sand. It's all what we're doing about natural resources. It's also about we're fishing more fish than they reproduce. The same thing with forest. So it's all about our linkage with natural resources. But we're here to find solutions, and there are solutions. But we need to apply them all across the board so that the solutions are the same for everybody. Because if you have good companies that are extracting sand according to good environmental and social standards, and the other one are not, this is not fair. Because then the one who are respecting the correct way of operation would have a more expensive price than the other one. And so we need to have the same kind of framework, and that's the idea. And in international guidelines, I say this is the way we want to do. This is the standards that you need to follow, and then if everybody is following, then we have a fair market. We can continue to operate. So the whole issue about the way we're doing things is so far we have what we call a linear economy. So we're mining, we're extracting material, we transform that in our industry, we're selling that to consumers that use that for a certain number of years, and then they dump it, basically. And doing though, we're running out of natural resources because the earth is not finite. Kenneth Boulding used to say already in the 50s that the people who believes in continuous growth in a finite planet are either fool or an economist. He was an economist himself, though. So the idea is coming to a circular economy where the industry is using resources, but when we design something, we know exactly where this resource will go at the end of the product. If it's a building, we can recycle the material, make a new building with it. It's not that easy. I'm not saying we'll achieve that, but as soon as we can achieve that, we'll be achieving sustainability. And sustainability is just not like something for a bunch of utopias. Sustainability means very long time operation. If we don't succeed that, if it's non-sustainable, at one stage it stops. It can be in 10 years, it can be in 20, it can be in 50, it can be in 100 years, but if you don't have sustainability, it stops. So the utopists are the people who think we can continue to operate without making any change in the way we're dealing with our natural resources. because at one stage we will hit the wall big time. So we have to rethink our production lines. We can reduce the amount of material. We can reduce the demand. There are some infrastructures that we don't necessarily need. We can be much more clever about it. There are things that we can reuse the material. We can retrofit. So if you have an aging population, at one stage you needed a school, but maybe that school become a place for old people. So we can change the affectation of those buildings. We can build for longer time. We can recycle the material, we can recover it from when it's been dumped, we can recover that. And if we have nothing else to do, then okay, we go for dumping. But we should stop as much as possible to recover stuff, so that everything that we're dumping is a loss. So that's it for the introduction. Again, for the people who came a bit later, there are people from the environment, there are people from the extractive industry, there's no bad guys, good guys, everybody's using sand. So if we look around ourselves, lots of things are made of concrete, and this is why we are so dependent on it. So now the question is, and that's the question I'm asking you this morning, and we'll talk about it, it's about solution. We will use the Chatham House rule. The Chatham House rule is that people can talk about what they think themselves, not necessarily that I'm representing you in an environment, but I will say what I have to say as me, Pascal Peduzzi, and we're expecting people not to release names that people say that or say that. Now, we will come with messages that comes from this morning and this afternoon sessions, and with this we will make a report, and we aim to bring that report on the table of ministries of the environment of the world. So next year, in March, there is, every 2 years, we have the United Nations Environmental Assembly. This is the governing body of United Nations Environment Program, and it's at the level of ministries level. So we want to produce a report, not to tell them we have a problem, we want to tell them we have solutions, and we want to move with those solutions. So with that, and not that to Louise.
Thank you, Pascal. Thank you so much. Emily, you just arrived. Perhaps you'd like to give you an introduction to yourself while we change over the slides, perhaps? Is that okay?